Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmond Rostand, Act 5, Part 1.
At the end of Act 4, we were at the siege of Arras, where a battle started. Christian was shot and killed. Cyrano went off bravely to fight in the battle, and we discovered that De Guiche just might be a nicer guy than we realized all along. Welcome to Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmond Rostand, Act 5. This is the final act. Let's take a look at our setting. Our setting is 1655. Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4 all take place in 1640. So yes, this is 15 years later. The final act is 15 years after Christian has died. It takes place at a convent. So I've drawn a building here of a convent. It's like a church where nuns live. Also, there's a big tree outside of this convent with a little bench over here and some nice grass. So it's 15 years later, and we are introduced to, we're kind of jumping in on a conversation among Mother Marguerite, who is a nun, and then two other sisters, Sister Claire and Sister Martha. And they're sitting out here, and they are talking about Cyrano. And they say he makes them laugh, and they remark on how he comes to visit them every single week. But mostly he's coming to visit Roxanne. So Roxanne has moved in with the nuns 15 years ago. So the nuns see that Roxanne has come upon the park of the convent, and she's walking with De Guiche. De Guiche is older now. It's been 15 years. He is a powerful noble in France. So things have changed a little bit, and maybe De Guiche is a nice guy now. Roxanne is mourning Christian's death, and she wears a veil and black clothes. That's why she has a veil now. So the nuns make their way somewhere else, and De Guiche and Roxanne come upon the park and have a conversation. Well, De Guiche asks Roxanne, "Are you still faithful to Christian?" And she says, "Yes, I'm still faithful to Christian." She points out that she always has his last letter by her heart. Remember, his last letter, written by Cyrano, had a teardrop, a tear stain from Cyrano and drop of blood from Christian. So she still has this letter by her. She's treasuring it. De Guiche also asks, "Do you forgive me?" Seems like they would have had this conversation a while ago, because it's been 15 years. But she says, "I am here," which isn't a yes or no answer. Is she here at the convent because she's trying to forgive him still? Or has she forgiven him and she's showing that she's done that? Or is she here with him having a conversation, therefore, yes, she's forgiven him? It's not super clear. Maybe you can be the judge and determine that. She also tells De Guiche that Cyrano comes to see her every week, which we know because we heard the nuns talking about it. So she says that Cyrano is her gazette. A gazette is basically a newspaper. So he comes and tells her all of the news of the outside world. And then in comes Lebray. Where did he go? I found him. Lebray. Remember, this is Cyrano's best friend. He comes in and talks to De Guiche and Roxanne and says, things aren't going very well for Cyrano. He's old, he's poor, and he's disliked by a host of enemies. Remember, Cyrano likes to write satire and point out the flaws in other people, especially rich and nobles. And so he had these satirical attacks on the hypocrites in society. So the hypocrisy of society is brought up by Cyrano, and they did not like that. So De Guiche says, we shouldn't pity Cyrano. He lives his life as he likes to. He does whatever he wants, even writing satire. And then De Guiche said, I'd be proud to shake Cyrano's hand. So, nice guy, maybe he's really changed, and things aren't so bad between them anymore. Things have changed between them. Privately, so Roxanne must have done something else, and Lebray tells De Guiche, there are a lot of people that really don't like what Cyrano has done. And I think there's a group of people planning to kill Cyrano. De Guiche doesn't like that because he wants Roxanne to be happy, and he tells Lebray, please make sure you keep Cyrano home and he's safe. All right, in scene 3, Ragueneau comes running in and he's super upset and he has some news. He goes to talk to Lebray. Roxanne and De Guiche go off and have a conversation, and Lebray and Ragueneau are talking. Ragueneau tells Lebray that Cyrano had been walking underneath this really high window, and some lackeys or some servants pushed a really large wood log out of the window, and it landed on Cyrano's head and practically crushed his skull, breaking it, right? Then he's barely alive. Cyrano's barely alive. He's still alive. And if Cyrano tries to raise his head, he'll probably die. And so then Lebray and Ragueneau leave to go and be by his side. Whoa, this is news. Well, eventually, De Guiche kind of wanders off somewhere, and Roxanne is sitting on the bench among the autumn leaves. So you'll notice there's some orange and red and brown leaves by this tree, a little bit of green. It's still early fall. And a nun comes in and announces that Cyrano has arrived.